podcast called Jellison Podcast.
He probably doesn't remember this at all.
Work together. It's easy.
This is kind of real. Like, holy shit.
And so it's really cool to get to be a part of that.
Hey, you know how it is, though. Hey, when
you now tune into the biggest ever.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
What's up, everyone? We're back with episode 153 of the Jellison Podcast, and I had to have my guy on after the season just ended, Dr. Charles Loftis. Chuck, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing, Dub?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on, and I got to start with this. Thank you so much for inviting me to the Trailblazers and Pacers game back in March. That's something that I don't think I'll ever forget. Having someone do that for me, and also being diabetic, it meant the world to me. And I know my mom and dad talked glowingly of you, and they were super appreciative too of that.
No, man, I'm glad you're able to come. So thanks for coming, first of all. But no, I appreciate you and the things that you're doing. So, that's the only way I could pay it forward is, invite you out and come hang out with us. So, it was a great time. And, I appreciate you for coming out. So.
Well, hopefully I can stay in India, or I can make it out to some games in Portland in the next few years, so we can see each other a few more times. Well, I mean, what do you think speaks to you about? Because I know there's several different diabetics that you've kind of mentored and just stayed in contact with. I mean, what kind of speaks to you about doing that?
Just to have someone that can really relate to, what you go through. A lot of people that really don't experience the highs and lows that we have to deal with on a daily, just with, controlling blood sugar and things. If you don't deal with that, you really can't relate, and you don't really understand like how internally it can affect someone. So I think for me, it's just to be able to like connect with people. It's the same, like I don't know everything, and it's still fairly new for me and what my body's going through. So just as much as it's good for them, it's really, warming for myself. So, but I think being able to have that connection and to be able to discuss and talk about things and someone that you just really relate to.
Mm-hmm. I saw the other day you put on your Instagram story, you screenshotted your Dexcom, and it was like 49 or something like that. And I feel like people would have no idea what that is, but I look at that and it gives me like anxiety just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know the feeling, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah. And I think, I think it was one of the times where I changed out my pump. So when the body whenever it's going through its basal cycle and the body is trying to get readjusted, then sometimes it plummets like that. But then sometimes it's hard to control. Sometimes it stays high. And then whenever you're trying to get it down low, then boom, all of a sudden, all of it kicks in, and then, it starts to go down low. So you're like, man, but yeah, like I think it happens more often than not. I was actually just looking at my Dexcom numbers actually yesterday, looking at my graphs and stuff. So my low percentages have been, pretty well, and the stable percentage has been good. But yeah, it's one of those things that it happens, and that was just one of the rare occasions where I posted about it. But it happens more times than not, that a lot of people don't really realize. And for an example, like traveling all the time, I was on a flight not too long ago, and they're getting ready to shut things down because the plane's getting ready to land. But I felt my blood sugar like dropping down pretty low, and you can feel it, And so I just, I had to ask the stewardess, like, hey, can you bring me some orange juice? And she's looking at me like, orange juice. And I'm like my sugar's like dropping really low. And I still don't think it registered to her about anything from a medical standpoint. I didn't say like, hey, I'm type 1, I'm a diabetic. I just said my sugar's dropping really low. So she's just like, oh, let me go see. And then she comes back with a cup. She's like, this do? And I'm like, yeah, it'll do. So, but it's just, it's just those things that it happens, and you have to roll with it. And so, but yeah, it's one of those rare occasions whenever it did drop low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yesterday, the other day, it's kind of a long story. The other day, I cleaned out my bag. I was trying to find my damn charger. So I went to class yesterday. I didn't have any of I usually take fruit snacks, and I have like 10 of them in there. I just leave them in there for whenever. And I didn't have them yesterday. I was low in class. So I had to get up, and they're doing construction on this building, and I couldn't find any damn vending machines. So I had to go across to another building. It's called the Union at Purdue, and it's like where all the people go for their tours and stuff. And then it has a bunch of like restaurants at the bottom. And I got the biggest Coke I could find and chucked that thing.
Yeah.
But it was like I was probably gone from my classroom because I just walked out because I'm really tight with that professor. But I was gone for probably like 25 minutes. I came back in and everyone was looking at me weird. And then I just didn't say anything. I sat back down. But
yeah, no, man, it happens. And then like sometimes like the body starts to crave, and then the body's like, whenever it's going low, the body's like, I need sugar now. You take it, but then your body's like, don't stop taking the sugar, don't stop drinking or eating whatever it is. And the next thing you know, it's just like, boom, then it starts to spike up. And then you're like, oh, now I have to find this balance. So, but whenever the body goes into that emergency low, then it's like, I need this right now, immediately. And, so you have to do what you have to do. Like you carry fruit snacks. I usually carry honey stingers. I don't know if you know what honey stingers are. It's a company called Honey Stingers. They make products that are, like organic, like sugar and honey and stuff. It's supposed to be for fueling athletes. So I know it's used a lot in sports and the sporting scene, but it's a great source of, carbohydrates. Like one little packet of little gel chews is like 60 something, grams of carbs or something of that nature. So yeah, I carry those around with me. And when I go, even if I go like outdoor hiking or things, like you really have to plan and prepare. And I don't think people understand the things of the planning and preparing you have to do. If you're on a pump, I have to shut the pump off in order for me to go and do any, trails or anything else, any activity, because activity with that, a little bit of insulin is still going to make your blood sugar continue to drop. So, but yeah, it's a lot of planning, preparing, and just staying ready. You always have to, keep things on you. But it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. It's a lot though.
Yeah. And then sometimes you can prepare and then shit hits the fan and you're out of luck for a little bit, and you gotta manage for a while. Like I usually have the fruit snacks, and then I try to bring like extra pump stuff because like if my Dexcom falls off, okay, whatever, I can manage that. But if my pump gets ripped out or something or screws up, that'd be worst case scenario.
Right. Yeah, I usually travel with an extra pen. I usually try to keep like an extra pen with me for that reason. I don't use like the little vial things. I actually still get my insulin pens, and then that's how I draw out for my pump. And then I'll use that, sometimes you have to go in and reset the whole mechanism just because the plunger inside of it. But I'll keep one of those usually around. But yeah, like I have to travel, I have to plan out my days, how many days am I going to be gone for? And then I usually bring one extra just in case for an emergency. And so it's life. It's life now, but
I'm glad you brought. What's up?
I said it's doable.
Yeah, there's people that have it 100 times worse than us.
Right.
Something we could never even imagine. So, it is hard for us, but at the end of the day, we're both of us are blessed. That's kind of how I look at it. But I'm glad you brought up how you spike, because that's something that I have an issue with. I actually just went to the endo last week or the week before, and he was like, all right, when you're high and you give a corrective dose, you need to stop, because I would like double up, and then he's told me it takes like 4 hours for it to go through your system, but then I was like cutting it in half, and then I just go straight down, and I was doing that all day till I went to sleep and it leveled out. But that's something people don't think about either.
Yeah.
Because people think like if you're low, oh, you eat stuff and then you're fine. You're at that straight level, but you're probably going to go high if you
Right.
overeat.
Right. So yeah, for me also, like whenever I look at having that continuous glucose monitor, like it's a great thing, but sometimes it plays a like a mind game with me where, because it's showing your blood sugar rising after you eat, which it should do, that's the proper thing to do. So you're like, oh, you don't want it to get high, but that doesn't mean that your insulin that's on board isn't working. It just takes like that 3 to 4 hour window. So like, yeah, you might see a spike up, then boom, once you get to that 3.5 to 4 hour windows, whenever things start to kind of peak back down. So if I'm not wearing like a Dexcom and I'm just going and using a regular finger stick, like my blood sugar levels will stay in the ranges that it needs to. But whenever you're looking at the Dexcom, you're like, oh, it's getting up there now just because I ate this meal. And I've also dosed myself with insulin, but that doesn't mean that like it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. So it's just, it's one of those things where it's like you have to not get too caught up in the mind game with like, oh, your blood sugar shouldn't be in the 300s or whatever else. Like if we had our pancreas working on a normal basis, it kicks out what it's supposed to help balance that out, to keep, everything real like equal. But, for us, we don't have that until I think maybe with this new loop system, the closed loop system, I think, which if no one knows what that is, I know like there are some units right now that kind of work together, but Dexcom and Omnipod are in the works right now with a beta version of them responding to each other, almost as if it's like your pancreas in real time. So once the continuous glucose monitor starts to read that things are starting to increase, then it automatically responds to the Omnipod and tells it to like, hey, kick in more insulin. And then once it sees that things are decreasing, then it tells the Omnipod to like, hey, stop the insulin. So maybe whenever that system gets going, I think we might see better numbers and also with better A1Cs. And I know someone back in Oregon where they actually have a loop system that they know a creator that does apps, and this person created this system for them. And her son, he's like 13. I think he's in his normal ranges for like 80 to like 85% of the times now, because of that loop system like responds like that. So I'm pretty interested and excited for whenever Dexcom and Omnipod finally come out with this, and to see how it goes, because I think it can really help out and keep the mental component and really kick that out to the side, for the users.
Yeah, I actually have that too. It's Tandem and Dexcom. So they link up, and it's called Control IQ on the pump.
So you have that currently right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called the loop system. I just called it Control IQ, but I think it has like different levels. So it's like if you're above 180, it'll secrete like half. If you're above 200 or going up to 200, it secretes like a full, and then it's like in these different layers. So you're not.
It's almost like a scale system, almost like a slider scale.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And but yeah, it's been a savior. It's like the first time I got my A1C under 7 in a long time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
After I got it, and it's a godsend, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I actually go and see my endo. So my people are still here in Oklahoma City. I don't know. I need to switch over, but I just feel like me being on the go all the time, like these are my people. So I always have all my doctor's appointments and stuff here, but I'm usually here for like a small window, and it's really hard to get into. So like shout out to my endo and all my people here, but like they'll squeeze me in, and so I'll have an appointment with her next week to try to check out everything and try to see what my labs and my levels are, A1C. And so I don't know, hopefully things have been going good. I've been feeling good. We'll see though.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't even like I'll get the reminder on my phone or whatever, like, hey, you got an appointment next week. And I'm like, I wonder if my numbers are going to be good. Yeah. And then I get there and they are good. But yeah, I stayed with, I had one when I was diagnosed to when I was like 4th, 5th grade, maybe. I switched over to a guy. His name's Dr. Sanchez. Best doctor I've ever met. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love him, but he's for pediatric. So I could only have him until I was 18, but we cheated it. So I was with him through when I was like 20, I think.
Yeah.
And they finally said, "Hey, you gotta leave." But
You gotta figure something out.
that familiarity factor,
It's important.
yeah, with us, it's super important.
Yeah, it's important because, just as much as you have to know about your body, like they have to know, what's going on and how things are with your body as well too. So, like usually when I go see my endocrinologist, like we have just a casual conversation. She's, asking me, how am I feeling? How are things going? How do I feel like things are going? And if there's anything that, she can do additional to help out. It's important to have those relationships and those bonds, with those individuals because, our case is like very, very unique, very unique.
And that doctor-patient relationship, especially with us, and I feel like it'd be the same for anyone with a chronic illness where you have to go for checkups every 3 or 4 months or whatever it may be. I mean, those are so important because you have to have that good relationship, but they have to be super hard on you.
Yeah.
Because you could have a bad stretch for 3 months and I mean, you're just on a downward spiral.
Yeah. I think it's really, also up to the client as well too. Like, I feel like if the doctor knows that they can trust you and you're doing well, then, they may not be, they could kind of take it easy or whatever. And they may not have to be, as strict or, like send out these guidelines. But, there's unfortunately in this world, whenever people are going through whatever troubles they have or conditions they may have, they kind of take them lightly. And they're just like, oh, well, because they're so used to doing this that they either neglect or they just don't want to do different than their normal routine. So, the medical field, it's, you have to be really strict on individuals because of that reason for sure, because it's serious, and, I've had a couple of cases where, a couple of young men that I know that recently over the last, within 2-year time frame, passed away from type 1 diabetes, just because like, I know one of them, he traveled and I think he left his medication. He traveled for work, left his medication, and I don't think, he could get his medication in time. But that's why I feel like it's really important. Like I use a nationwide, pharmacy. So all my stuff is in the system. If there's an emergency, then yeah, like I'll have to go and get something. And I know everyone may not have the same financial means because you might have to pay out of pocket, especially if your insurance has already filled your, prescription. You might have to pay out of pocket. I remember I was in Miami and I was low on a pen and I went to the pharmacy and one pen was like, out of pocket was like around $200 something just for one. And then I've heard of instances where, people are spending thousands of dollars for a pen of insulin. And I'm just like, it's unreal. It's crazy. But so things like maybe setting up an emergency funds for that, like a little savings that you kick back a small amount to build up for that. I think that's important. Or HSAs or FSAs, the flexible spending accounts. That for me, whenever I signed up with my company, my FSA has been life-saving. It's, they're taking out funds already taxed, that's going in account. And I just use that straight from my medical expenses, all of my insulin supplies, my the equipment that I have to use for, Dexcom or Omnipod or whatever it may be. And so I think, like any listener out there, I think setting up things like that, especially if you're type 1, to have an emergency just in case you're on the road or whatever, and you leave your medication, then yeah, have a backup plan. Have a backup plan.
And this kind of ties into what we were talking about a minute ago. I was one of those kids that kind of didn't do what he was supposed to when I was little. I don't know if that was just because of the fact that I was not even a teenager. And then when I was like a young teenager, felt like I was invincible or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, this thing makes you grow up super fast
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
an instant, because you have that one oh shit moment, and then you're like, okay, I need to get it together.
Yeah. Right. That's why, like I've heard people ask, who do you think like has it worse? Like when you're a young kid and you are diagnosed with this, or whenever it happens later in, your adult years, like it happened for me in my 30s. And I'm like, man, I don't know, as a kid, because as a kid's mental, they may not really understand. They don't understand the science behind it and what's going on. So like, I've seen it be really tough on parents to have to manage that for the kids. And then, worrying about them being in school and making sure they're taken care of in school. Because the child may not understand that what they're feeling inside is, because their blood sugar is really low, or what they're feeling is that their blood sugar is really high. They may not, understand that. Me now, I think for me, the biggest thing was just making the adjustments that I had to make in life. And now that I have my supplies, like the Dexcom, the Omnipod, those things help out tremendously for me. Like I think it's a lifesaver for me. But I'm also able to realize like what my body's going through, how it feels, and so on. So I can actually interpret that, and I know how to take an action for that. So I don't know, I think it's twofold. But I can't say like, oh, you have it worse as this versus that. I just think like someone being young and dealing with it, then it's got to be really, really tough compared to like someone in their adult years. So,
and a lot of the type 1s I've had on, like you and Jordan Williams, who's a UFC fighter, Ryan Smith, who is down at Mercer now. He's basketball coach. He used to play for Purdue. And then actually I had Gary Forbes on a few weeks ago, or a month or two ago now. He's one of 3 players that in NBA history to play with type 1 diabetes. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was playing overseas for a while, but I mean, all you guys had got it like fairly late, like in your 20s or 20s or early 30s.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, for me, I think it's, I don't know, it is weird because like I couldn't imagine living for 20 years and then having to completely change my lifestyle. But then again, you are much more disciplined than me when I was 3 years old, getting it, not knowing what the hell's even going on,
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I don't know. I think about it, but it's like I don't know. I don't know which one will be more challenging or more difficult. Honestly, I could say I think for me, I think being young, I think it's really I think it can be challenging just for the family and the whole dynamics compared to adult an adult getting it. Honestly, I think that's my answer. Just because like I said, and the kid doesn't know what's going on. The family has to make all these different adjustments. They have to make sure, like I remember as a kid, I used to try to go stay with with my homeboys at their house all the time, especially on the weekends. So it's like, okay, as a parent, then you have to make sure like, oh, their parents know about what's going on and know how to respond and react to these highs and lows. And then as a parent as well, like just thinking about like when the kids sleep, having to monitor, their sugar levels at that time too. So, but yeah, no, it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah, my mom, she used to come into school every single day when I was in like elementary school and give me a shot after lunch. Up until I was in like 4th grade, and then my nurse did it, Nurse Goggin. And then when I went to middle school, we were really tight with her. It's just because my mom would come in all the time and talk to her. So, so I've been tight with her my whole life. But then when I went to middle school, I had to fend for myself. I had to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, the things that I've seen my mom do, yeah, it's something that people don't really talk about or will never see, but it's absolutely insane. I don't want to talk about it because I'm gonna get emotional.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot, man. And, they're huge, backbone supporters, and so just dealing with that on their day-to-day routine, work, everything that they have to do. it can be a really huge mental component. I see it being a really huge mental stressor more than anything. But shout out to your mom for sure, man, and all those other parents that are having to deal with the type 1 diabetics with their children and so on.
Mm-hmm. And then luckily for my family, my dad has a job with really good insurance that covers us, but a lot of people aren't in that position. And I mean, it breaks my heart to hear that like people have to pay thousands of dollars for one thing of insulin. And I know I'm not a political guy or anything, but I know when I saw that thing the other day or a couple months ago now, probably
the bill.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up.
They
it's
weren't
crazy.
I didn't look into it too much, so I don't know if this is the case, but I know with some bills, and I'm not a politics guy, so correct me if I'm wrong, but when they do some bills, they try to sneak a bunch of other stuff in that kind of prohibits it. I don't know if that's the case or if it just that side's being difficult or what was the case. I'd maybe know more about it, but
no, I'm not honestly, and I haven't done as an extensive background check on it. I just saw from like one of my other, Instagram followers that I follow that's also type 1 that she was posting about it. And, I gathered bits and pieces from that and basically how they're trying to make it basically harder for, diabetics to get care for insulin. And I think the issue is that they don't understand the difference between the type 1 and type 2 because they hear this word diabetes and it's all grouped as one thing. Whereas in some diabetics, it's because of maybe a poor lifestyle, poor habits, or so on. But other diabetics, such as ourselves, type 1s, it's just something that just happens. So our pancreas fails, doesn't create the beta cells anymore to create insulin. Then we're insulin dependent at this point in time. So they're creating this thing, and they're saying that like, oh, from what I read was like someone was saying basically like, oh yeah, like diabetics have to make better lifestyle choices. It's like, what? Like, it's not all created equal. Like, it's not, it's not all the same. So how can you make that statement? And then they're trying to charge an incredible amount for insulin and making it harder for individuals to get insulin and to get their devices and things. It's unreal. So I don't know what else is behind it, but from what I read on that, it's not right.
Yeah, I mean, we both agree there.
Yeah.
I know there was one diabetic, I don't know if he's a congressman or senator or who he is, excuse me, but he was trying to push something similar to that last year. I didn't really follow up and see how that kind of played out, but getting someone that's diabetic into Congress or whatever so they can actually speak to what's real about our condition that's what's going to change it. But I don't know. I mean, we could go all day about how politicians are stubborn.
Yeah, we got to get the right people in the right spots for anything, even just, like not to go too deep, but, even just for like the women's rights and things like that. Like, I think they're the wrong individual. I just had this discussion with my mom. Literally, we were just talking about this stuff yesterday, my mom and I, but the people that are making the decisions are the people that don't have to deal with any of these issues. Mm-hmm. And, so they don't really have their insight. All they see is political gain off of, for their benefit versus the people that actually are dealing with certain things. So just like the abortion laws and these insulin, all this stuff, it's, like you said, we can probably go on a tangent about things all day, but we have to get the right people. We have to get our people in the right spots. And, and it starts with us. Like we're the ones that are voting these individuals in, or if you're not voting, you're allowing certain people to get in because, you're not doing your research and voting for the right people. So
yeah,
we have to do better with that.
And that's something that I've kind of thought about within the last year or two when the podcast is starting to get bigger and everything like that. I mean, I want to make a type 1 diabetes foundation at some point. Hopefully I can get that moving soon, but I mean,
I would
look
love to work with you on that. So keep me in the
1,000
loop on that too.
1,000%. All the T1D, DJP, all you guys will have a role if you guys want them.
Yeah,
1,000%.
sure. All right, you count me in already. So,
Well, I mean, it's just a guy I brought up earlier, Gary Forbes. He inspired me because he made this like comic series kind of, and it's superheroes with disabilities and conditions. So it's like one's diabetic, one has, I want to say, Down syndrome, and there's a bunch of different things. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I mean, he's doing that, and he's coming out with the book in a couple months, and then he had like meetings with corporations about making it into a TV show, and I feel like that. I mean, doing stuff like that, if you're not in this T1D family, you won't appreciate it. You'll just see it and be like, oh, that's kind of dumb, whatever. But that could impact millions and millions and millions of lives. And I mean, if I can start something that'll impact thousands of lives, I'll feel like the most successful person in the world, to me personally. Like nothing else will really matter.
Right. No, I agree, man. I think, being able to advocate, get the word out, just anything that can make someone else feel better and help out. Like it's definitely, I mean, you're on the right track right now. I think your podcast is a wonderful thing that you're doing. Things always start small. You just got to keep pushing, keep going, keep grinding. And, you have a wonderful platform already. So continue to use that in the right direction, continue to network and meet people, conferences or whatever else it may be. You're doing a wonderful job. So,
well, thank you.
Kudos, Doug.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think it all starts with people like you, people like Gary Forbes, someone like Adam Morrison, Mark Andrews, who's in the NFL, Jay Cutler. I mean, all these well-known diabetics are people that will have the platform, I mean, to speak out and not be ashamed or afraid to say what's on their mind and try to advocate for. I mean, at the end of the day, we're doing this for the younger generation, so they don't have to go through the same things that we go through. But I mean, there's that like mental hurdle that you have to get over. Like Gary Forbes was telling me, I don't know why I'm bringing him up so much, but Gary Forbes, and then Ryan Smith also told me that he had a long time where he was like struggling with it, just like the idea of having it and being vocal about it. I mean, that's something that I wasn't like ashamed of it. I know there's this kid in my class and he was ashamed of it. He's kind of opened up a little more as we've gotten older. We kind of grew up together. But I mean, once you get over that mental hurdle and you can help other kids be proud of the fact that they're diabetic and they can do all these different things, and they use that as motivation as opposed to a crutch or something that holds them back in life. Yeah.
No, even for myself, when I first started with shots, and then whenever I made the transition to the medical devices, it was a mental hurdle for myself also to get over, just from the image of like self-perception, going out in public and then having people stare or ask questions. And then I just got to a point where I was like, F it, and also I wanted to show like the younger generation that it's okay to wear these devices, because I think we talked about this on the last podcast that you and I did, but there's kids in schools, in grade schools, that are opting out of gym class because they don't want to wear, they don't want their pump or device to be seen, and they're ashamed of it. Or they won't go into the locker room and change with the other kids because they have these devices. Again, kids, then they don't know what's going on. They don't know what it is. Like, even working in professional sports, I've had athletes like, bro, you have a nicotine patch on? And I'm like, no, it's not a nicotine patch, man. It's my insulin pump. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm type 1 diabetic. And then they're like, oh, okay. And so like, it's just one of those things that you have to have, pretty thick skin, and just deal with it, and go about your business, because at the end of the day, it's here to make your life more enjoyable and to help with you and to be able to manage these things so much safer. So but yeah, no, I get it. I still get it all the time with some of the athletes, especially whenever it's a new player that comes in and gets traded or whatever, and they've never seen. A lot of people have never seen like the devices like that. But then it got to a point where I had like, certain players are just like, oh, making sure like they're patting me down, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? They're like, oh, making sure you got your, you have your pump on you, man. We don't want nothing to happen to you. I'm like, bro, I'm good, but I appreciate you for checking and looking out for me. So, we end up getting into relationships like that with, with some players. And but yeah, I think whenever people understand and they see more about it, then they have a better understanding of what it is. And then it helps make other people's lives more comfortable. If I'm out and I see someone with it, I'm like, yo, like, I might, flag and show them mine, or, I come up and let them know like, hey, like I'm also T1D as well. So, and then, it sparks conversation and just letting them know like they have a fellow person that's, right there doing the same thing. So.
And I don't know if I told you this on our first podcast, but there's a guy, John Chick, he played for the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm.
So did I tell you this story?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, so me and my dad were at Five Guys or whatever to get him something to eat, and he looks over and he sees a guy. He's like, "Hey, that guy's got a pump. He's putting his stuff." And I look over and I'm like, "Dad, he plays for the Colts." So I walk over there and I'm like, "Oh, I'm diabetic too. I have 15 years, whatever." And then I had him sign those like little peanut boats or whatever.
Yeah.
In Five Guys, but it's just like things like that. I mean, you never expect. And then the other day I was at the driving range. I didn't say anything to the dude. I didn't want to make him uncomfortable or anything, but
Right.
He was like taking off his sweatshirt and I could see his either his pump or his Dexcom on his back.
On his back. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. There's certain case. No,
yeah,
but
I just didn't want to bring it up right there in front of a bunch of people. But
right. Yeah. There's certain instances where it's like, oh, you might recognize it. I may not say anything, but then there's certain, like if it's in a, really close environment or something, and it's not gonna just put them out there, then yeah, I might recognize and let them know. But yeah, no, it's great whenever you see other individuals out there, and I think everyone, it's they enjoy it. I remember I was in Vegas for Summer League last year, and out in the pool or something like that, and there was another gentleman that had his Dexcom on, and I'm like, yo, started sparking conversation like, hey, how long have you been? It's like, oh, blah blah blah, so it's a great conversation starter, but also let people know like, hey, it's okay, to wear it and wear it proudly. So and that's what we have to get out there for more of the younger generation and the kids, that way they can go through school and just out in society, period, and be comfortable with themselves and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I'm not a big soccer guy, but my roommate was watching like the Seattle Sounders the other day, and one of their guys is diabetic, and he had his Dexcom on his arm.
Really?
Yeah, his name's Jordan Morris, I think.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot that people don't really know. I didn't even know I was a diabetic. There's a couple guys at the NHL, a few guys in the NFL. There's none in the NBA right now. That's what we need, so they can get that Dexcom on their arm, so you can see it. Because
yeah. Because that's a stage where obviously like you're going to see, unless the only thing I could see is if they're wearing that, then they might wear like a sleeve over it. Yeah. So you wouldn't be able to see it, because they might have like a shooting sleeve or something of that nature, just to kind of help keep it on, because like a lot of contact that it could rip that off. So, but yeah, no, I really haven't come across anyone so far since I've been in the NBA that has it as well. Not too many. I haven't even come across any like other staff members in my department or so on either that are also type 1 diabetics that have to deal with it. But yeah, I think it'd be I know after I became diabetic, mm-hmm. I see so much of it now. I see so many people that just randomly pop up. It's like almost like one of those, whenever you buy a car and then all of a sudden you see that same make and model all the time. It's the same thing for me. I feel like whenever it comes to the diabetics and mm-hmm. wearing Dexcoms and Omnipods, so I'll just randomly see them just out the blue all the time. Yeah,
when you went in the NBA, because the NFL, there's a few, like Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in the league, maybe the best. I mean, you can't see his stuff. I don't even know if he wears it. I think he does. He has Dexcom at least, but I mean, you won't be able to see it because he's wearing pads and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the NBA would be clutch. Baseball, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know too many. I'm sure they're
The GM for his name's Sam Folt. He played in the MLB. He's the GM for the Phillies now. He's diabetic.
okay.
There's a few, but a lot of them are retired now.
Yeah.
There was actually a his name's Garrett Mitchell. He was a first round pick in the draft, 2019 or 2020 maybe, for the Brewers. And I mean, it looks like he's gonna make it to the big leagues here fairly soon. So, hopefully he'll be able to represent and put on for us.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, it's good to see more of the devices being used in sports. It can really help out, I think, especially in the sports industry, just managing things or just being able to monitor, if anything. So it's done wonders for me. And there's times that also, like, I'll go back to the traditional ways where, I might not wear, my Dexcom or my pump or whatever, and I'll just go back to manual injections. But I like being able to have that option, though. I like being able to have that option. And but I'm doing great, and hopefully everyone else out there is they're managing and maintaining with theirs pretty well too.
No doubt. Hey, well, I ran out of Dexcoms the other day, so I was waiting on them to get shipped. I hated doing that.
That process is trash.
So much. Yeah.
That process is trash. I don't know. I don't know if you got, like, I'm assuming this is kind of across the board. Whenever it's time for me to have a new shipment in, I have trouble with them all the time. It's always something that gets held up. And then 3 weeks later, like, I'm out of pods or whatever it may be. And I'm like, yo, like, what's going on? What's the holdup? Or even just it's more so with the Dexcom more than the Omnipod, though, to be honest. I don't know. It's that process with insurance. And then after 90 days, you have to get a new, doctor's approval. And it's like, and then the doctor office sends it off, and then it's sitting there at the insurance company, and then they're like, oh, like, no, we're still waiting on this. And the doctor's like, oh, we already sent that off like a week ago. It's the worst process ever. Yeah. And I, they need to figure it out. I don't know what to do. I've called up there and talked to so many people, and I'm like, like, what is the best way to get through this overlap, this time delay, especially whenever I'm getting, when I'm out of, the Dexcoms, I'm out of it. So how do we fix it?
You gotta call him bitch at him. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I learned that from my mom. She would call him like every day for like 4 days straight, every single person, and just bitch at every single person. And eventually they're gonna be like, okay, we'll figure this out now because we don't want to deal with this crazy person anymore. But
I legit. So usually they send you a notification early before it's time to submit for the new order. So that happened at the end of March, and then April 10th was kind of like, all right, this is the new renewal period. So sent in whatever I needed to do, gave them consent. It was in progress or whatever for a while. And then here's today's the 29th. So yesterday I called and I spoke to someone on the phone and said, hey, like, this has been in progress since like April 10th. And I only have one more, unit left. So what's the holdup? I literally got off the phone and boom, they shipped it out that same night, and then it delivered the next day. And I'm like, what was so hard? Like, why was it just sitting waiting? Why couldn't that have been done without me having to call up here? It's the process for it is trash. But hopefully they can figure that out. I think they know too. When I spoke to people in the past, they're like, yeah, we understand. Like, this is not the first time we've heard about this. And I don't know. There has to be a better way. It has to be a better way.
I would assume it starts with top down, but I'm not totally sure because I mean those poor people on the phones, they don't have any control.
Yeah, they have no clue, no idea. They're just doing their job. So like the lady I talked to yesterday, she was sweet, sounded like she was, very new. But it's one of those things that like, yeah, as much as we're frustrated too, we have to remember that, like we have to stay calm, and it's just better to, if you speak to someone in the right manner, I think things can get, handled a lot better than if you don't, because you never know what someone's going through, what they're going through, what they woke up with, whether their family members could be dealing with cancer or something else. You just never know. And could be dealing with a bad split up, divorce, whatever. You never know what someone else is going on the other end of the phone. So I try to be really mindful of that, and let them know like, hey, I know it's not your fault, but we need to figure this out. Like, help me figure this out.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Once again, I can't thank you enough for embracing me and being there for me and us staying in contact. It means the world. And I appreciate you.
No problem, Doug, man. I appreciate you, and it's an honor to be back on your podcast again. And again, anytime that you want to do this, I'm always down. To come back and just sit here and talk with you. But, you have my contact. You can always reach out, and, we do a good job of keeping in touch with each other. So it's been a pleasure, man.
Yes, sir. No doubt. Hey, open invite anytime you want.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah, whenever you figure out about your the foundation stuff as well, let me know so I can figure out how I can help with that and assist. And maybe we can work on something in the future as well. So
yes, sir. 100%.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right.